Hello, and welcome to our session on ArcGIS, Understanding SDI and Geospatial Infrastructure. In today's session, we'll explore how a fully integrated geospatial infrastructure connects you and your partners' multi-source data and catalogs. You'll learn how ArcGIS's open platform enables fair data that's findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. See how SDI collaboratives around the world are putting data to use in amazing multi-organizational geohubs. I'm Jill Salago-Simmel, Product Manager for SDI and Inspire. I'm joined by my colleagues Bruce Harold, Product Manager of ArcGIS Data Interoperability, and Martin Hogeve, Senior Consultant with Esri Professional Services. Let's get started. I'm one of the founders and former Executive Director of Indiana's statewide SDI. In November 2005, our SDI hit a turning point when a tornado ripped through 3 counties in southern Indiana. The local emergency management director arrived on the scene, pulled out his phone, and used Google Maps for his situational awareness. Only the maps on his phone were different from the maps other emergency response teams were using. Local officials were overwhelmed. The National Guard was called in, utility companies and volunteers descended from around the country to help. They needed a common operating picture, a common SDI, open and accessible to everyone, regardless of their background or technical savvy. 22 people lost their lives that day, and that was the day I knew our SDI needed to be available to everyone, everywhere. Because first and foremost, SDI are about problem solving, addressing shared challenges among multiple organizations. From local to global scales, people and economies cross borders. Disasters cross borders. Nature crosses borders. And infrastructure crosses borders. Our location data and technology must cross borders too. Shared SDI framework data, also known as foundational data, provide a geospatial common operating picture for program management and decision making. How we think of SDI is evolving. Today, geospatial infrastructure enables new patterns for modern SDI. In the 1990s, SDI were born out of the recognized need for more institutionalized data sharing in a time of ad hoc and bottom-up data transfer and sneakernet. In 1999, our statewide SDI implemented, with the help of Esri, our first NSDI clearinghouse node. Let me just say, our aspirations then were as big as they are today, but technology definitely wasn't ready for us yet. Like many SDI over the years, we established our statewide common framework for all units of government. Today, under the leadership of our Geographic Information Officer and GIS Council, it aggregates local authoritative data from 92 counties into seamless statewide coverages and delivers high-resolution imagery over 94,000 square kilometers to nearly 7 million residents. But it's been a long and arduous path to SDI development. And of course, SDI aren't static. They are constantly evolving. You may have experienced a similar journey, or perhaps you're just getting started. I feel quite optimistic about what this decade will bring. I like to think of it as technology finally catching up with our aspirations. Of course, making this happen isn't just about data and technology. A holistic framework is required to implement an integrated geospatial infrastructure and put it to use effectively. Geospatial infrastructure is integrated. It connects organizations across borders, jurisdictions, and sectors so you can address today's challenges. To do so, we need to use the best science, design, and systems thinking. Geospatial technology integrates these approaches as well as multiple data types and allows us to look at problems holistically. Experience from SDI around the world shows that there are a few major components needed for modern SDI to thrive: governance, data and technology, and people through community engagement and capacity building. This aligns with the UN GGIM Integrated Geospatial Information Framework for modern SDI and geospatial collaboratives at all levels of government. Each of the four components break out into subcomponents. For example, governance includes representative organizational structures, leadership and vision, strategy, and more. This year, we're building a resource library to help connect you with the resources and good practices in each of these areas. The internet and cloud computing are transforming the way organizations manage data and collaborate. WebGIS is significantly easier to use, deploy, and integrate into an SDI ecosystem than traditional systems. Users can now inexpensively and efficiently access immense amounts of geographic data. Web services stream content to users based on the permissions given by the data owners. This is the evolution of SDI I referred to. It is enabled by an emerging geospatial infrastructure. Next, let's look at some examples of effective SDI sharing portals. And while they're all anchored in data and technology, let's consider how they also support stakeholders' needs beyond technology. Most people don't rally behind data. They rally behind goals and aspirations. Organizations like we see here in Loudoun County, Virginia, are having great success making their data accessible by featuring their programs and initiatives through decision-ready information products. And Loudoun County's data catalog, powered by standards-based human and machine-readable metadata, is available to other discovery portals. Tools automate these data flows behind the scenes with little intervention. For example, Loudoun GeoHub automatically produces a DCAT feed for their curated catalog of data. Here we see how the catalog flows from the county to the usdata.gov catalog. ArcGIS Hub supports DCAT, which is a resource description framework, or RDF vocabulary, designed to facilitate interoperability between data catalogs published on the web. Data are made accessible to all stakeholders, first, through consumable maps and apps. Second, through APIs, downloadable data, and view services. And third, through federated catalogs. If California were a country, it would be the 37th most populated country and 5th largest economy as of 2020. At just over a year old, the California State GeoPortal has 32 contributing partner organizations, with 5 coming soon. serving over 2,000 items in their GeoPortal. The GeoPortal's success has been called an anti-silo data sharing effort that made the portal become a reality as it continues to make incremental improvements. Keeping your authoritative data current is essential to a well-used SDI. With over 1,000 image and feature services and 137 web mapping applications, Maryland is keeping it fresh with their Dataset Freshness Dashboard. Each dataset on Maryland's Open Data Portal is updated regularly. Their dashboard shows how many datasets have been updated or have not been updated recently enough. The dashboard itself is updated on a daily basis. In an SDI, the stakeholders are the geospatial community of interest, and initiatives are often about collaborative data. We see this in SDIs all over the world, like what we see here in Washington, D.C., and in North Carolina with NC OneMap. NC OneMap is a far-reaching project that exemplifies horizontal and vertical collaboration. NC OneMap promotes a vision for geospatial data standards and best practices, data currency, maintenance, accessibility, and documentation, and a statewide GIS inventory. It comprises 37 priority data themes, including statewide orthoimagery and aggregated parcel data from all 100 counties in North Carolina, plus the lands of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. With geospatial infrastructure, existing data can be combined in new ways and supplemented with additional business data to address local to global challenges. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Hub delivered data and services that put actionable open data to work. And SDGs are not limited to countries. For example, the state of Hawaii is doing some really interesting work on their SDG hub with the Aloha Challenge. Ireland's another great example of build once, use many times in practice with their award-winning GeoHive. GeoHive has dozens of applications and initiatives that address issues from the environment to the economy. And when they need it, that principle, build once, use many times, can be put into practice quickly by leveraging solutions. New application portals can be built quickly and easily using existing data and templates. Like Ireland and hundreds of others around the world did to communicate vital COVID-19 information to the public and decision makers. I think one of the most remarkable geospatial success stories this past year was the scalable deployment of applications. Within just days and weeks, we saw the deployment of hundreds of COVID-19 dashboards to countries all over the world. That pattern has been repeated with the rapid deployment of dozens of other COVID-19 and vaccination distribution analysis workflows, data, and applications. It has raised expectations for the reusable solution deployment on a scale the world hadn't experienced before. It's really quite remarkable because that would have hardly been possible just a few years ago without the geospatial infrastructure to support it. As more and more actionable data are available, it opens new possibilities to put those data to use. Today, we have hundreds of solutions that help solve common business needs through integrated workflows, focused maps, and apps. This is important. These are freely available resources that SDIs can build on to keep their portals relevant as they mature. ArcGIS solutions leverage an organization's authoritative data and are designed to improve operations, provide new insight, and enhance services in government, utility, public safety, telecommunications, and commercial business. Now that we've seen some really wonderful examples, let's look at the technology behind the scenes. SDI and geospatial infrastructure is inherently multi-organizational. Geospatial infrastructure interconnects multiple organizations in an integrated system of systems. Federated catalogs and portals expose actionable web services to put to use in applications that make an impact. Interoperability is achieved using multiple patterns, tools, and standards. These aspects are best understood in the context of ArcGIS as an open system. Open means many things to many people. Here's a way of looking at it. While it's always about being interoperable, an open system should also try to embrace many perspectives. For some, it's about being extensible, customizable, and flexible. For others, it means standard support, open source, and open APIs. And for others, it's about enterprise integration and pragmatic interoperability. Esri remains committed to an open design architecture that enables our users to work more easily within a heterogeneous IT environment across many types of data sources and applications. From a product perspective, ArcGIS content and solutions provide resources that can supplement your SDI data. For example, and I think this is really powerful, ArcGIS Living Atlas now provides continuously updated live OpenStreetMap feature data that you can use freely in your SDI. This isn't just the OpenStreetMap base maps you already know and love. These are actionable feature data extracted from OSM and ready for use in your maps and apps. ArcGIS solutions continue to add new solutions like the 3D base map solutions that help you get more out of the data you already have. Your multi-source data are managed and integrated using ArcGIS Pro and Enterprise. And here's where I want to highlight two products we'll see more of in our demos: ArcGIS Data Interoperability and Esri GeoPortal Server. ArcGIS Online is where you collaborate with partners and publish web services. In Online, your shared data are highly scalable, performant, and secure. And they comply with open standards and specifications to assure interoperability. Many organizations do this using a hybrid implementation with ArcGIS Enterprise. ArcGIS Hub is your delivery and engagement system where you share open and secure content through catalogs that help make your data fair. Open data catalogs can also be delivered through ArcGIS Enterprise sites. Together, ArcGIS is an integrated solution for modern SDI. This summer, we're releasing a new ArcGIS Inspire Open Data solution that follows this streamlined implementation pattern. The new solution represents a lightweight approach for the European Inspire Directive and supports the PSI2 Open Data Directive that goes into force this week. It can be used in ArcGIS Online only and Online Enterprise hybrid implementations. Enabling ArcGIS with Inspire alternative encodings and DCAT AP is important because it enables our European public sector customers to leverage the full capabilities of ArcGIS Online and Hub while meeting their Inspire and Open Data obligations. Sometimes the data you need to expose from external providers may use slightly different data models or aren't already available as feature services. Next, Bruce is going to show us some workflows using ArcGIS data interoperability that can help you integrate and update data from multiple sources as the framework of your geospatial infrastructure. Bruce?
Thank you, Jill, and hello, everybody. We're going to take a look now at an actual SDI, the Inspire GeoPortal, a self-service access point for countries in the European Union where there's a vast array of thematic data in GIS forms. Let's drill down now into the country-specific map here and even further into the country of Luxembourg, or more correctly, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. We can see that we have, I think we see 304 data sets available, of which the vast majority are downloadable, and a lot of them have map viewers like WMTS. Let's say I'm interested in the address data, and I can see that there's one of the major themes available is address data. And what are my options here? Well, I can view in WMTS, I believe. I can also download. So I get hold of this data set here in application-specific GML. So it's a dialect of XML. It's not natively consumable by ArcGIS Pro, but easily made so with ArcGIS data interoperability. Now, for the purpose of viewing in my map here, I have built a couple of tools for getting hold of that data. Here's a tool which does an initial load, reading from that Inspire GML file, and there's a few themes of data in it, like the address point data and thoroughfare names and zone fields and so forth. Now, I won't go through this tool in detail, but what it does is pulls out elements from the XML, stitches them together into a georelational format like we're used to doing in ArcGIS, and writes them out to a feature service, my address point feature service. So it's pretty simple data. I'll quit this tool here now. This is what it ends up looking like. So here I am in Luxembourg. I can see the address point data that I've built. If I like, I can query some of the features in the map. Go with this guy here. And I can see I have the house number, I have the thoroughfare name, I have the zone field, the neighborhood, and the post code plus the country, which is in French there. So all is well, I've got hold of my data. Now that gives me a bulk download of the data, and all's well. I've made it into feature service. It will scale right across the ArcGIS system. But a little bit of a clerical review here. I have discovered that in fact the data is maintained on a weekly basis, a little bit more frequently than is available through the Inspire GeoPortal, and I can get hold of that weekly update of data through this portal here, hosted by the Luxembourgish data platform people. Now I can download GeoJSON in this case. Now yes, we can read GeoJSON in ArcGIS Pro, but what I want to do is take that new data source on a regular basis and update my existing feature service. So I've built a tool that does exactly that, and I've run it already here today to save a little bit of time. And of the original address points there we looked at in the map a minute ago, 167,000 and change, I can see there's a few more available at the URL for the GeoJSON data, 172,000. So I just do a little bit of work in this tool here to get the data into the schema that I want, that's going to agree with my feature service here. I do a comparison about what features are unknown to the existing feature service, and I write those features out to an additional layer in the feature service. And you can see we have a little over 9,000 features output. I just make a remark in passing here that the schema that I'm adopting here is a simplified version of the Inspire schema, which we are offering as basically a flattened way to get hold of the data from Inspire and make it immediately useful in ArcGIS. So there's we go. I have 9,000 of those features that have been added to my map. Back in Pro here, these are those extra features. They're coming up in green. And let's just go into bookmark where it'll be a bit more visible, where the data arrived. And I can see in my map here, if I turn the extra address features on and off, I can see around this locality, which happens to be a transport hub in Luxembourg, I get some extra address points there that I might use to augment a geocoding locator built from the total set of all the data. So that's a very simple use of a pan-European geoportal called Inspire, and we're using an additional data source to enhance it. So you might find many reasons or many ways in which you're going to do something similar in your environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. One of the greater challenges in multi-source data collaboratives is the integration of data from heterogeneous sources. After bringing in these data, Bruce can seamlessly publish to ArcGIS Online and add metadata, in this case, Inspire metadata, and share with everyone using ArcGIS Hub. When shared with Hub, users can immediately interact with your data and access it through downloads and APIs. Speaking of metadata, let's step back for just a moment and consider another dimension of the open platform: fair and open data, which are critical to SDIs and geospatial infrastructure. Your data never stand alone. Metadata, the key information that describes your data, live with your data and flow through the platform with it, powering search in curated catalogs. When you enable metadata in your ArcGIS Online and enterprise organizations, all kinds of magic happens to help make your data fair. Your geospatial data are findable when described richly by your metadata. They're accessible in machine-readable formats as well as complying with accessibility guidelines. Your geospatial data are interoperable, easily published and shared using international open standards like OGC Web Services and the emerging OGC API family of standards, as well as Open Geoservices specification. Your geospatial data are reusable when they're released with clear and accessible data usage licenses. Geospatial infrastructure is really helping to evolve SDI from being data-focused to being user-focused, putting actionable data to use in decision-ready information products. Geospatial infrastructure interconnects multiple organizations in an integrated system of systems. Distributed catalogs from multiple sources can connect using open standards and communication protocol, such as OGC's Catalog Services for the Web, or CSW. As we saw with Bruce's demo, sometimes the data you want to interoperate come from multiple catalogs, including third-party catalogs. Next, Martin will share some new ideas for catalog interoperability, using Esri's open source GeoPortal server. Martin?
Thanks, Jill. In the previous demo, you saw Bruce publish a number of web feature services and metadata for it. In this demo, I will take that and show you how we can use this in ArcGIS Pro and other client applications. What you see here is a metadata record in ISO 19115 format for a web feature service hosted in ArcGIS Online. In the distribution section down below, you will recognize the link to the ArcGIS Online feature service. I will publish this metadata record to my local GeoPortal server-based metadata catalog. GeoPortal Server is a standards-based metadata catalog that supports multiple standards, including ISO, but also FGDC, as is being used in that other metadata record there over the state of Kentucky. In addition to supporting multiple metadata standards, we also support standards-based interfaces based on OpenSearch, but also based on the OGC Catalog Service, CSW. In this case, my European Capitals WFS service was recognized and the link to the service has been extracted for use in client applications. Now let's switch to one of those client applications, namely ArcGIS Pro. For ArcGIS Pro, we have developed this CSW client, an open source free add-in that can search catalog services of various makes and allow you to consume the data you find there. Let's start with the local catalog service, which happens to point to my CSW based on GeoPortal server. Not surprisingly, I find one item that includes WFS, and that is the European Capitals layer. I can consume this layer directly in ArcGIS Pro. Well, this is interesting, but it requires me to set up GeoPortal server populated with metadata, and doing that manually is a lot of work. Well, we have a solution for that with the GeoPortal Server Harvester. In the GeoPortal Server Harvester, you have the option to configure a number of input types, the source from which you will get metadata, and you can define an output broker, the target to which you will publish the metadata. So in my case, I've configured an ArcGIS portal input broker that happens to be a group in ArcGIS Online. Notice the group ID in this registration part. And then I've configured an output broker that happens to be my local GeoPortal server instance. This group in ArcGIS Online includes a number of the items that Bruce had created during his demo and some other items that we had created prior to this session. And it will harvest those items into my local GeoPortal. For that, I will configure a task that takes the metadata from the input and puts the metadata in the output. Let's run this task. This is a small task, so we can easily follow its progress on the homepage of the harvester. And as you noticed, it is already complete. If I go back to my GeoPortal, notice that I went from 2 items to 7 items. This may illustrate the power of harvesting metadata. You can harvest metadata from other catalogs and quickly build a sophisticated and comprehensive list of content that might be of interest. Now let's see how that shows up in ArcGIS Pro. Repeating the search for WFS to my local CSW now results in 3 items instead of 1, including the European Capitals WFS item that I had, but also 2 others that I harvested from ArcGIS Online. I can obviously consume these services again in my ArcGIS Pro. Well, this is great. It basically prevents me from having to upload metadata manually to my GeoPortal, but I still need to set up a GeoPortal if I want to work with content from ArcGIS Online. Well, there's a solution for that also. What we have done is we have configured a CSW interface directly on ArcGIS Online. And the link to that catalog service is what you see here. Notice this link includes the organization ID. That's the organization ID of the subscription that we have been using in these demonstrations. If I repeat my demo for searching for WFS, but searching against the ArcGIS, the Inspire Online CSW, you will notice I get a slightly different set of results. But this just did a CSW search directly to ArcGIS Online retrieving content from the ArcGIS Online subscription we work in. And of course, I can consume these individual items. For example, this address Luxembourg download service following the Inspire specifications. Notice that there will be some points added to the map in Luxembourg. And let's zoom to that area. These are the address points that Bruce found from the Luxembourg data download site and then included in his address data layer. With that, I'm concluding my demo, and I'll just repeat very quickly. I've showed you GeoPortal Server and how it can ingest standards-based metadata and then expose that metadata through a CSW service. I then showed you how ArcGIS Pro can search that CSW service and consume a web feature service found in the catalog. I also showed you that GeoPortal Server allows you to set up a harvesting process that takes metadata from ArcGIS Online into the GeoPortal Server and then expose that content via CSW. And then lastly, I showed you how we can create a CSW interface directly on ArcGIS Online, consume that CSW interface into a CSW client, and then consume that directly into ArcGIS Pro, for example, where we have developed this CSW client. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Martin. Federating catalogs using open standards such as CSW or DCAT really help connect data providers, clients, and users in a heterogeneous environment. GeoPortal Server and data interoperability can be great complements to your SDI. I'll conclude with what I consider the most impactful guiding principles in an SDI journey. Amplify your SDI by leading with initiatives. Initiatives speak directly to purpose. They're the why behind an SDI. It's what stakeholders care about most. Feature some of the projects, initiatives, or programs that are supported by your efforts. We see leading SDI helping stakeholders to answer questions, become informed, and make decisions with appropriate data and information products. Sustain your SDI by reciprocating value. What is the value proposition to your partners? Sustainable SDI align vision, mission, and goals among partner organizations. It's organizational interoperability. And they return benefits directly to contributing partners. Value can take many forms, such as increasing the visibility of a partner's work, sharing customizable app templates and workflows, hosting public data, and facilitating this for that data exchanges. Finally, embrace open and make your data fair. Open data are essential to an SDI. Make your data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. In our increasingly interconnected world, the work you do is essential. These principles are helping make your shared data accessible and pervasive. So thank you for joining us in this session. We hope it's helped you think about some new patterns for modern SDI. Links to connect with us in the Esri community are provided below on the session page. Next, I invite you to chat with me, Bruce, and Martin, as well as our colleagues listed as additional experts at the bottom of this session window.